we're going to have this current book right here. Computer up and running so I can look at some minor notes here and there. That's pretty exciting. Scroll up, computer. How about that? That'd be pretty neat. Let's see here. August 24, day 171. I'm going to do a book review on my crooked camera, so we'll see how that goes. It doesn't look like it's very professional. It's on a tackle box and corner table. Well, you don't see that. I read 15 books this year. So far. I'm going to read 15 more, hopefully, in the last 4 months. That's going to be a challenge. It's not going to happen. I'm going to rank them from the worst to the best one I've read. We're going to start with Bel Canto by Ann Patchett, I think is her name. This is the first romance book I've ever read, and hopefully they're not all like this, because this book was trash. It was a story about conveniences right after each other. No, it actually is about an opera singer that gets kidnapped at a Chinese's birthday party. This Chinese guy loves this opera singer. He loves to listen to her, so he invites her to sing at this party. And then terrorists take it over because he thought the Mexican president was going to be there, but it was just the vice president. And it was not interesting. I didn't care about any of the relationships. The ending fell flat for me. I got this book by a book recommendation on book 2 by Emma Green, and it was just awful. I don't trust her opinion anymore. I'm sorry, Emma. Number 14 is, sadly, Mallory. This is a sequel to Bird Box. Josh Malerman must have watched the Netflix movie of the adaptation that he wrote. And he's like, I'm going to make a quick book and write a sequel so that people can buy my book after they watch the movie. And it definitely feels that way because it was not as well thought out. The ending felt flat. I bought this book $28 right before vacation so I could read it on the beach or on a boat, and that's what I did. It's 280 pages, so that's 10 cents per page. And the first 2/3 of this book, I was like, yeah, I can dig this. I can pay that 10 cents for this content because it's good. It's interesting. And the last third happens, and it ruined the entire series. Mallory and Bird Box were ruined after the last third of this book. And this is kind of the reason why I'm doing this YouTube review, because I just want to get my opinions out. Alright, the rest of the books are great, and I would recommend any of them. I give this one a 2 out of 5 star. I gave Bel Canto a 1 out of 5, which is the worst I can rank a book, right? Number 13 book. Number 13 is Fire and Blood by George R.R. Martin. It takes place about 100 years before the Song of Ice and Fire, I think. It's about when the Targaryens came to Westeros and took over, and they became kings of all 7 kingdoms. And it's just a collection of stories from maesters throughout the individual's kingship. And they take stories from other storytellers. There's a dwarf that they utilize a lot, and he gives the story a little more humor and a little of the George R.R. Martin shenanigans that are raunchy. There's a scene in this book about 2 mothers and a baby, and it was rough. Yes. About a quarter of this book is definitely worth a read. The other 3/4 is kind of a slow burn, and definitely the last 200 pages or 100 pages, it was rough to read. And you can see that the spine has been not in good shape because I brought it everywhere I went. I took it on planes, I took it into any kind of luggage I went out the house with, I brought it along just so that I could finish it. And I gave it what did I give this? A 3 out of 5. That's pretty good. Number 12 book is Malice by John Gwynne. This is the first book of a 4-book series, and this was a book 2 recommendation by JessieMae. She had a book club, and I read this book, and it was okay. If you're a lazy reader and you don't want to get into the details and the descriptions and the raunchy parts of George R.R. Martin, then this book is a great backup for that. because the action scenes in this book is the best I've ever read. There's giants in this fantasy world. I haven't read a fantasy book since Harry Potter that had giants. Hagrid, we trust! Sorry. Vote Hagrid 2020. Is that a thing? Is it? Because I'd vote for him. Number 11 is a big book. Big book. Number 11, The Yellow Wallpaper. It's actually only 15 pages. I definitely lied. It is about a woman who's not right in the head, and they lock her up in a room to see if that'll fix her, and she doesn't like it. And the room is full of yellow wallpaper, and then shenanigans pursue or ensue. And you can read this in about 15 minutes. I read it at vacation along with Mallory, and I sat on the beach and read it, and then I thought about it to this day. So if 15 pages can do that to you, give it a try. And I bought it for $1. And what did I rank that one? 3.6 out of 5? Yeah, I enjoyed that one. Number 10, I listened to it audio on the way to vacation, and I'm back again. It was called Radio Silence. This is one of 3 recommendations by, what is her name? Paperback Dreams. She is the book YouTuber that I trust in non-fantasy books, and this is her favorite book, so I trusted in her, and she did not fail again. This is a good book. It's about a girl and a boy who are graduating from high school, and they are going into universities or colleges, and you just have to, it's just a coming to age story that everybody's gone through. They went through interviews, they've had drama in their lives, and it's just a lot on their shoulders, and they run a YouTube account. And it's pretty interesting. Number 9, oh, I also gave that a 3.7 out of 5. I recommend that book to anyone. If you see it and you want to read it, go ahead, go nuts. It's a good book. Number 9 and number 8 is The Witcher. I read the first 2 short story collections, which is The Last Wish, and what is the next one called? Number 9 is The Last Wish, and number 8 is Sword of Destiny. I like Sword of Destiny more, which is an unpopular opinion, just because of the ending. I love how books end, and the last story in Sword of Destiny was phenomenal with the mother and stuff, and it has Ciri, and Ciri is such a great character, and I like Yennefer more in the Sword of Destiny than I did Last Wish. Last Wish, she was kind of a B-word. But I can see why people like The Last Wish. There's just better stories there, I think, besides the last one of the Sword of Destiny. Oh, that was such a good story. Number 7, House on the Cerulean Sea. Woo! This is another one of Paperback Dreams' recommendation. This is a feel-good book. I haven't read many feel-good books, but I read this book, and I'm going to read more of them, because this I loved from the start to the end. The cover says this book is very close to perfect, and it's very true. It is about a 40-year-old who's a little tubby in the stomach. He works for the government. He goes to orphanages, and checks if the children are right, if they're following government procedures, and if the teachers are behaving or whatever. And he gets sent to an island for a month to look over this weird orphanage. And there's about 6 or 7 kids, and each one of those kids is very unique and very special and very well written. And the adults on the island were just the same, and I loved every character in this book. This is a must-read, and it's only number 7 on this list. I have read some great books. I gave this one a 4.1 out of 5. If you're above 4 in my rankings, you're a phenomenal book. Number 6. I read Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. What did I give this one? A 4.3 out of 5. Why did I read this book? This doesn't belong with everyone else. If you've noticed, it is the longest book I've ever read. Look at that print. It's tiny, and it's like over 1,100 pages or whatever. I listened to it the first time. It was about 60 hours, and I couldn't double speed it because I couldn't follow along, because this book is too smart for me. I started reading it in the summer of 2019. On my way to Iowa to go golfing with my brother-in-law and his father and my father for Father's Day, and I told him, hey, I just started this book called Atlas Shrugged. It's pretty good. No, it was very boring. It was very, very boring. But my brother-in-law's father perks up. He's like, who's John Galt? And I was like, I read that line somewhere in the first hour and a half. I was like, and I was thinking, why? I was like, did you read this book? And he's like, yeah, I read that book 40 years ago. And I was like, why is that line stuck in his head 40 years ago? I would have forgot it a couple days from now. After you finish this book, you will understand why Who is John Galt is a line that you'll never forget. And then there is philosophical, I can't talk, by the way. There is theories, this book is about business, government, trains, romance, raunchy romance, betrayals, denial, human conflicts. Ayn Rand writes in a way that you just know what this person is thinking. You understand his motives. You understand why he made this decision, and you can see both sides of the story, and it is very descriptive. It's about a woman in her 30s that is a vice president of a train company that runs across the United States, and she is in charge of this company, and she meets a guy who owns a metal company who invented a lighter, stronger metal, and railroads use metal. That's what I knew before I read this book. After this book, I can probably run a train system because of the descriptions that Ayn Rand puts in these books. There are speeches in this book. I went from Des Moines to Sioux Falls, to Sioux Center, back to Sioux Falls, and I still was not done with a final speech in this book. A lot of people I read online skipped the speech, and I don't know why you would, because everything this book does accumulates, is that the right word for that? To that speech, and then you get most of the theory in that speech, and it's rough to get through this entire book, but if you can, it's worth it. If you want to know what's wrong with this world, read this book. If you can't get through the first 100 pages, you probably won't get through the rest of the 7,000. All right, so number 5, it is the last book. It was recommended by Paperback Dreams. My mouse it won't go down, so I had to literally pull this thing down. This is annoying. It's called I'm Thinking of Ending Things. I don't really remember who wrote it. This book has such a good ending, and I was very interested in what other people's opinions on the ending would be, so I gave it out to friends. I made them read it. I haven't done that to any other book. I was like, read this book, and I want to hear your thoughts on the ending. It is creative. So this woman, or this girl, is driving with her boyfriend to meet his parents at his farm, and she doesn't know why she's going because she's thinking about ending things with that boyfriend. And then she starts seeing things around the farm, and then they went to Dairy Queen, and then stuff happens. This is a great book. 4.4 out of 5. It'll keep you on your toes. Now, the last 4 are fantasy books. I dig fantasy. I love them. So let's get into them. Number 4 is Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson. Everybody knows that book. It is a part of a 10-book Stormlight archive. Each book is about 1,000 pages. Each book kind of revolves around a character and his backstory. And there's 3 main characters in the books. There's Kaladin, who is the point of view of Way of Kings. He is a slave. He's living through the worst situation a human being could live through. And it's the way that Brandon Sanderson writes his books. You are living it through Kaladin's eyes, and so you're kind of feeling down and to the ground while you're reading this, but you're rooting for every decision that he makes. You understand every conflict that he's going through. And then there's Shallan, who is kind of a daughter of a not a very important royalty family. So she goes out to train with a very respected scholar, and her story doesn't blossom until Words of Radiance, which is why I like Words of Radiance more, because you get more of Shallan's story, and her story kind of blossoms, and it becomes way more interesting. The third character is called Dalinar. Whew! He is a character. He is if Kaladin is the lowest rank you can get as a slave on the worst situation ever, Dalinar is as high as you can get. He is number 2 to the king, and he is he's just a presence wherever he goes, and he's got issues. Yeah, there are mythical weapons and armor in this book. Star Wars and Game of Thrones as a kid, it would be the Stormlight Archive. And I am digging it. If you grew up with Harry Potter and then you read Game of Thrones, give this series a try. It's a chore because they're long and there's a lot of story. Each one of the three main characters kind of deals with their own problems. Like Kaladin he fights depression to the extreme, and then Shallan fights with child trauma to the extreme. Dalinar deals with PTSD to the extreme, and it's a great story. It's phenomenal. It's huge. Number 2 and number 1 stories. This is the second time I've read this. It's the Name of the Wind, number 2, which I give a 4.7 out of 5, and Wise Man's Fear, which I give a 4.7. I just like Wise Man's Fear because it's longer, you get more of the story, and it's just, I love it all. So, what is this book about? So, Kvothe, the main character, he works at an innkeeper right now. He meets a chronicler who starts writing down Kvothe's story, because Kvothe, as an innkeeper, has done stuff in his past, and he starts from the beginning, from when he was 5 or 6 years old in a circus deal, and he explains everything that he went through his life, when he was broke on the streets to when he went to the university, and then the feats afterwards. And Patrick Rothfuss does every sentence that he writes in this book is there for a reason. He puts every amount of love and effort into that sentence, and I can't get it off. The third book that hasn't been released is such a burden on me. I'm more bitter about that than the Winds of Winter. Rothfuss does music well. He does currency well. It's something that I haven't seen in many books is the use of currency. Like Harry Potter, for example, J.K. Rowling just skips right over it. He's like, or she's like, hey, my character has a huge amount of money in the bank, so you don't have to worry about money until it's relevant and brings the plot forward. But in these books, currency it kind of revolves around it, because he starts with 0 and he has to eat and he has to live, so you fight with him. And just a normal day like you go to work, you come home, you get a paycheck, you can buy some food, hey, you can live a little more, and it's done so well. What else can I say about this book? Nothing. Day 1 of when he's telling the story, so it is more than nothing. Day 1 is when he's telling the story, is Name of the Wind. He wakes up, the book starts. He goes to bed, the book ends. Day 2, Wise Man's Fear, he wakes up, the book starts. He goes to bed, the book ends. And I cannot wait for day 3. And that's it. I don't know if this was, what do you think? Have you read any of these books? Tell me what you think in the comments below. That's what all the booktubers do. I'm not going to have any viewers, so do whatever you want, you scallywag. Anyways, that's it. Toodaloo. See you later.